Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of Anastyr Chronicles. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Anastyr Chronicles by Don't Panic Games. Now, you may have heard of this title before, but it is being published now by Don't Panic Games. Thank you to them for sponsoring this preview. This is a demo copy in front of me, so all rules, components, things like that, subject to change. And this is a current pre-order campaign, so you can check out the game found link down below for everything that they have planned for the current campaign. Now, Anastyr Chronicles is going to be a game for 1 to 4 players where you're going to be cooperatively fighting off these different waves of enemies, trying to complete your different quests, all while moving on a side-scrolling map. So I'll show you exactly what I mean about that in a moment, but it's meant to be a beat-em-up style game that's a little bit reminiscent of video games, where you're going to be scrolling through the map with these different waves of enemies that will continue to spawn, and you're trying to complete certain objectives with your quests. And you can either play this through in 2 different modes, as a campaign mode where there's a story that will tie you through everything, or if you'd like to just do a one-shot mode, you can do that as well if you'd like to load and play, perhaps to learn the game, to show it to someone before you dive into the campaign itself. Now, each adventure is going to have you using different map tiles, which are all going to have a whole bunch of things on them, such as impassable terrain, difficult terrain, and it's going to have a map for you where initial enemies are going to spawn. So every adventure is going to start with a set of cards like these, and it will show you what you need to set up the adventure board, along with showing the different levels of enemies, which I'll get into in just a moment. But you'll use this to set up the board as well as set up the beginning of the story for yourselves. And then after that, the other side will show you exactly what you need added. So these are the enemy cards used. This is how you're setting up the activation tracker, which is over here, any special rules, and then the event deck. Because players are going to be trying to meet certain conditions for these quest cards, but they are only going to have so much time to do so. So this is currently set up as a 2-player game, meaning that there are only 6 quest cards here in this deck, so players only have that much time to be able to go through this. Now, these event cards are going to be triggered based on the initiative over here, so that basically means that you know you have 6 rounds to accomplish this particular mission. Now, the heroes that you can play as in this game are going to be very asymmetrical. So you have your player board, and it starts off with things that are all unique to your character. First of all, your stats are all different depending on what you specialize in, but you also have different abilities, which I'll get into in a moment, but you also have a deck of cards that you're going to operate with. So your deck of cards is going to have your art on the back, so it's very easy to see exactly which cards are yours, but some of these cards are going to be shared among everyone, where there are basic cards that are in everyone's starting deck, but some of them are going to be special for your particular character. So depending on your play style, be sure to pick someone that definitely speaks to you, because not only your player board abilities are going to matter, but how these cards interact with things as well. So, for example, Brid, here you can see her health is 8, she has a movement of 2, she takes up only 1 space, which is pretty typical for any humanoid type things, but she has 2 for attack, 4 for defense, and 3 for art, which is like your magic attack. So those are going to be her different stats. And then you're also going to be working toward a fury ability. So she has a Longhorn charge here, which is that Brid targets a space within line of sight and moves there, ignoring inaccessible spaces and all terrain effects. Brid attacks all spaces along her path, then all specialist and minion type enemies on those spaces suffer stun. So there are only 2 types of enemies in the game, which is going to be those specialists and minions, unless you're fighting a boss. So this is basically affecting everyone. You can see where that's very good, but at the beginning of the game, you're going to start off with 0 fury, and there are going to be different ways for you to gain it throughout each of your turns, but it's going to take you a bit of time to be able to work up toward that 7. You'll then spend it and unleash this. Now, she also has this power that she may boost a defense roll using any type of boost bonus. So you are able to play your cards, which I'll get into in a moment, but another thing that you're able to do is use them to boost certain things. So if you were, for example, boosting a defense move, then you would be able to discard any type of card with this character to be able to add to your defense because of this power. Now, players are going to have 3 cards in their hand, and they're going to be using these to do different things. So, first of all, you can play it for the ability that it has. This one, for example, you would actually play this as a reaction. So this would be one where you would react to block instead and gain +2 shield. But here's an example of a card that you would play, which is that Brid gains 1 +1 for their defense token, which is going to be one of these tokens over here. And 2 for the strength tokens, so that's really loading them up. And then Brid gains 1 fury die +1. So that means they would be able to roll the fury die and then gain fury based on what they rolled +1, which they would track over here, which is great for them. And then they would gain a reroll token. So you have your reroll token, it can be exhausted, so this would be a way for you to unexhaust your reroll token. So that's something that you would be able to do, but when you play a card, you get to do something else with it as well. So you're able to slot them down here if you choose to do so, or you could just discard it, but they're going to allow you to work toward these different combos. So if we did choose to play that this round, we would slot this over here, and now we have a blue symbol slotted for our combos. Now we may choose to play this card next, which is going to have us do this one before actually had this symbol up here as well, which would have gained us a fury. So we're going to add 1 on our tracker over here, slot this in, and then we're going to be able to do this one as well, which is going to be rally. So we gain another fury point over here. Oop, we're gonna go that way. And then we have movement 1, then an adjacent ally or in the same space as Brid performs movement 1, meaning that they're going to be able to move and hopefully allow someone else to be able to move. And then Brid would also be able to gain 2 health. Now, where we are currently at max health, you wouldn't be able to gain health above what your maximum is, but I'm sure at some point we would have taken damage. I'm just showing you how you're able to slot your cards. So if we were to have used this card, we would slot this over here, and now you can see that that gives us access to our combos. So we have the combo of the blue and then green, which is the Fraternal Bastion. Brid, movement toward an ally. If Brid can be the target of the attack, she defends instead of the ally with +1 shield. Now you can see here, using these combos again would gain you a fury point, so that is a way that you're going to be able to gain more and more in that aspect, but this is something that you're going to be able to do to basically try to shield for your allies, where Brid is someone that wants to come in and perhaps be able to shield and take damage, so this is something where she would be able to come in and shield an ally that was being attacked and potentially take the damage for them instead, and potentially shield all of the damage as well. So now that you understand a bit more about the hero board and what you're going to be using to accomplish what you're trying to do, I'm going to walk you through what a general round is going to look like. Now, remember that you have those event cards and you only have so many, so if you aren't able to accomplish what you need to before those quest cards run out, you're not able to win the game and everyone will just lose. So there is a sense of urgency where you're trying to go through this map and have it scroll forward for you, but with that you're going to go through each of these rounds with certain game phases. So the first phase is going to be the preparation phase, and players are going to have all of their personal decks. You're going to have it shuffled at the beginning of the game, and then for your preparation phase, you're going to draw up to 3 cards. Now, normally you're going to draw those 3 cards from your hero deck, and if you have any cards that you want to discard first, you can discard any cards that you choose to before this happens, but there are also injury cards that are going to be added to your hand as well. So they are going to be bad. They're going to clog up your hand. So if you have these, you do have to keep it in your hand, meaning that you're only going to have 2 of your player cards accessible for you, but typically you're going to have those 3 available. You'll draw those, and then you'll go on to the initiative phase. So the initiative phase is all going to be based on an initiative track that's set out that I'll show you in a moment, but there's going to be turns not only for the different players as well as the enemies, but the map itself is also going to have a turn, and then there's going to be a dangerous phase as well. So this is our initiative track over here, and as you can see, we do know when our heroes are going to act, and we do know that other things are going to be happening between us, but we don't know exactly what. So when this token does flip over, that's when you'll reshuffle the order for these, but typically you're going to go down the order track, having everything take its turn respectively. So the first card that's going to be placed over here is going to be the threat. So this is going to be something that players are going to have to deal with each round, and it's draw and resolve a spawn card if the number of enemies in play is a certain number or fewer. So this is currently set up with a 2-hero game. If there are 4 or fewer enemies ever on the map, then you'll draw a spawn card, which is how more and more enemies are just going to continue to show up. So that just shows that you really need to plan around what's on the board and what you're trying to do, because this threat card is always going to come out and spawn enemies if there aren't enough enemies out on the board. Now otherwise, activate the type of minion with the lowest number in play. In case of a tie, choose the highest rank. So if there are enough enemies, then it's going to be an additional turn for the enemies to activate. But that's definitely a way that you can see that the board is going to continue to fill with enemies for you to try to deal with. Now next up is Karak's turn, so I'm going to walk you through what the player turn is going to look like. So here we have these 3 cards available to us, and we do have some base actions that we're able to do as well. So we're able to charge, which would allow us to do a movement and then an attack, and we're able to do other things such as move, or if we're over near a mount, we're able to attempt to dominate them and ride those mounts as well. So with our character here, this is going to be Karak. We're going to have him choose to try to take out some enemies. Now, you have your movement here. He has a movement of 3, and when moving, you always have to move orthogonal, except for 1 diagonal. So you are able to do 1 diagonal, but that's it. So the other thing that's great about this particular character is that when he performs the movement, he ignores opportunity attacks and the terrain effect that is difficult terrain. Because normally when you're traveling in this difficult terrain, it will end your current movement, but he is able to actually ignore that, which is great. Now, opportunity attacks, when you're moving out of a group of enemies, you would normally take an attack of opportunity, but we are going to have us go 1, 2, and then 3 diagonally into here. And another thing to note, as I said, we're humanoid, so we are a space size of 1, and so are these particular minions, but you can only have up to 6 in one spot. So if you are ever adjacent, you are able to attack from adjacent with a melee attack if it's ever a full spot. Otherwise, you have to be in the spot with those enemies to be able to attack them. Now, in order to reach that, we would have moved and then charged at these enemies, but because of that, with a charge, we are able to do an attack. So with that, we are going to roll 3 dice because that's our strength, and that's going to be these dice here. So you can see that they have a hit symbol that's going to do a damage, and they also have this hand symbol, which is going to be a shove that you're able to do, but there are also blank sides, so you want to be sure that you don't roll those as well. Now, before we roll, we are rolling off against 2 warrior brothers, and they only have a defense of 1. So as long as we get 2 hits, we get to kill them and take them out, but they also have a throw of 2. So if we do get that grapple, we are able to throw them, which you can throw them into other people as well, but you'd prefer to take them out if you're able to do so. So we do have our 3 dice here, and we're going to roll them in this spot, and we got plenty of successes. So there we have our 5 successes. We needed 2, so we will take out both of these guys, and they are eliminated for now. So now we'll move on to the next in initiative phase. So here we have the Bone Swamp, and this is going to be when the events are triggered. So we'll pull this event over here, and this is Hunters. Heroes lose 1 additional health when suffering an opportunity attack. So this is going to be out until something else replaces it, but the different heroes are going to be taking additional damage when they're trying to move out with those spots that have enemies in them. So that's a further way to incentivize players to try to take out any enemies when they move into specific areas, and you are able to adjust the initiative at the beginning during the preparation phase if you have a heroic token. So those are going to be these tokens over here that you're able to gain, and that's a reason why you may choose to want to be ahead in initiative, knowing that certain things may affect you if you're not able to move away before they move toward you. Now, this also shows how the different wild creatures are going to move. So, for example, this one is going to move this way. They get to, they actually don't get to go through impassable terrain, so I believe they would just stay here. And then this is where this token would flip over. And that would have been during the Bone Swamp's turn, so now it will go on to Brid. So Brid is going to take a look at their cards here and see what they're able to do, but because of that difficult terrain, they're actually in a pretty tricky spot compared to Carrick with his ability to be able to ignore that effect. So first we will have Brid play Leap Attack, which is going to slot them a red card. They're able to do movement and jump, which would help them get through any of this difficult terrain, and then attack. Now, we aren't going to be close enough to be able to attack, but we are going to go 1, 2, and stop over here, and then be able to slot this card here. Now, there aren't other cards that are going to help us currently at the moment, so we're going to choose to simply move again to hopefully work us toward this mount. Now, it is moving us closer toward the enemies, but it's also going to enable us to be able to drop this map tile sooner. So we will move diagonally once, and then once forward up here into this area with the mount. Now, you'll see why that's dangerous, but we are going to flip this over here, and this is going to be the enemy movement phase. So as you can see, the current enemies that we're playing with, because it's a 2-player game, are the blue ones, and there's the specialist as well as the minions. So that's going to be these 2 cards up here. But if you were playing with different enemies in the particular adventure, you would have these in the initiative as well. So there are the red enemies as well as the yellow, and there's going to be different enemy cards based on that, so you can see which ones are the minions as well as the specialists. And then sometimes they will also be veterans, which is going to be the other side, where they're even harder to beat. So that's the different enemies that are going to be in play, but luckily in our current 2-player game, we're only fighting off against these blue ones. So we do have our warrior brothers as well as our High Father. Now, our High Father is going to activate first, and they are just going to move 1 toward the closest enemy. Now, the warrior brothers are going to go next, and they also have a movement of 1. So this one is going to actually move into this spot here because Carrick is actually higher in the initiative. So these are both equal distant because a diagonal does not matter for the enemies. So they're going to move over to this spot here, but both of these brothers are going to move into this spot here with Brid. So that's how they're all going to move, and then this one here is just going to move once this way. So all of the enemies are going to move, and then they're going to attack. So in a spot like over here, just this one enemy is going to attack, but in the instance where Brid is being attacked, only one enemy is going to attack, and an additional die is going to be rolled for the other enemy. So where the Warrior Brothers battle is only 1, that's not really going to change a lot because you have 1 + 1, but for example, if their stat here was a 2, it would be 2 + 1 for all of the other enemies that are in that spot. So for example, these 2 enemies to roll, they would roll these dice here and they would have 1 hit. But Brid would be able to roll for her defense stat. So she has a 4 defense, which is really strong. So she would be able to roll here and compare those successes to hopefully not take any damage. In this instance, she would deflect all the damage because she had enough successes to be able to stop what was happening. So now for Carrick as well, he would only have 1 die rolled against him, which is going to be 2 damage, but he does have 3 defense. So he's able to roll for that, and he got 2 successes, so he is absolutely safe. But otherwise, if you were to take the damage, you would adjust the dial here. Now that may have seemed pretty easy, but those are the Warrior Brothers. They're pretty low health, low stakes. When there's a lot of things swarming toward you and a lot higher level enemies, it's going to get more and more dangerous. Now, after each of these activations has been completed, the activation phase is over and you're going to go to the enemy spawn phase. So you do spawn enemies during the threat, but you're also going to spawn them during this phase as well. So what you're going to do is take one of these cards, and then it's going to tell you either the east or the west. So that's going to tell you which tile that you're looking at, and then you're going to spawn the respective enemies. So what we would be looking at is spawning 4 blue minions. So they are those warrior brothers, and we would be putting 1 here as well as this tile, and then 2 on that top corner tile as well. So just to show you what the different spawn cards are going to look like, here we have a west tile. You can see where they're showing up in like a different area. But this is just going to be how the enemies are going to spawn, and sometimes it's going to spawn other things for you as well, such as different beasts. So when you do have that beast icon, you're going to roll a die, and you can either have a common, uncommon, or a rare beast show up. You could even hopefully find a drake that you're able to ride. So that's all going to depend on these spawn cards that come out, and you will just reshuffle these if you ever need to draw new ones. But again, you are limited to the number of events that are being triggered, so you do only have so much time to go through things depending on the adventure that you're playing. So after this would be that end of round phase, where if your event deck is empty, you would have immediate defeat. The players were not able to beat that particular adventure, but otherwise you'll do any end of round effects and then cycle back through to that hero preparation phase, where you're going to discard any cards that you don't want to keep. Perhaps we wanted to discard both of these, and then you will draw new cards, again, unless you have an injury in your hand, which is going to clog up your hand. So with that, we're now going to take a look at what this adventure is and what we're trying to do. So every adventure that you play is going to have this set of cards here, and that's going to be the adventure that you're playing through. So it does have a bit of narrative where it has your setup and what you need to start the game, but then after that it's going to have these different quests. So they are going to have special things that you're able to add to this particular scenario that you're playing through. And then it also has a requirement that it wants you to do. So this one is very basic. It wants you to perform scrolling, which is when you're going to cycle through the map tiles, which I'll show you next because that's a perfect lead up. But you are going to be trying to complete these, and it has this little flip symbol that when scrolling is performed, you would then flip this and read through this as well. So basically what players are trying to do is go through these different cards, not really knowing exactly what they are because they have a sense of the narrative and the story unfolding ahead of them, but you're trying to get through these and get to one that eventually will let you know that the adventure has been completed. So when flipping these over, hopefully eventually you get to one that will tell you that there has been a positive outcome. Otherwise, if you run out of those quest cards, that's when you will end immediately at the end of that round. So taking a look here, the things that are added for this current quest, which is the current card that is active for this adventure, and it's a Grim Welcome. It's going to have a March into the Unknown, which is a special rule. As long as the Patriarchy is on the board, scrolling cannot be performed. He cannot be eliminated while he stands on the same or an adjacent space as an enemy. So that's something that you're going to want to do where you're trying to get, that guy is the High Father. That's a little bit of a translation thing here, but we're trying to take out the High Father and also take out the enemies that are around him, because as you can see, they're kind of protecting him. Now there's also Eye for an Eye, which is a special rule. A hero who eliminates at least 2 enemies with a ballista gains 1 heroic token. So that's going to be another way that you're able to gain those heroic tokens, which, as I mentioned, you are able to use to swap things in initiative, but another strong use of that is going to be using it for an additional action. So you are only able to have 1, but you're able to spend those to have additional actions on your turn, which could be a reason for you to try to do this. And then here you can see, as soon as scrolling is performed, you would flip this over and then read all of this depending on what happened. Now, combatants in the game are going to be the heroes as well as the enemies. So combatants is the term for everyone that's currently fighting in this brawl. And when there are no combatants on a particular tile that is westward, you're going to then scroll forward. So I am going to fast forward us a little bit to show you what that is going to look like, because when a hero moves off, they're going to be able to spawn a new tile in front of them. Now, taking a look here, when Bridget chooses to move over to this tile here, the western tile is completely empty. So you're going to then pick this up and slide your eastern tile over, now becoming your western tile, and then you'll place the next tile down. So you'll place this over here, and now, as you can see, you're continuously moving forward. Now, another thing that I did was I changed out this character here onto the mount. So you do have these mounts that you are able to ride, and when you do so, they're going to give you an extra action, they're going to give you a bit better movement, and they're also going to increase your size. Meaning that if you were next to a group of enemies over here, for example, and there were only 5 of them, you are now a 2-sized person, meaning that you can attack from here because you wouldn't be able to fit into this particular area. So that's another cool thing, that players are able to take their little standee and add it to the different mounts throughout the game. Anastyr Chronicles is going to give players a strong sense of strategy while you are side-scrolling through these different map tiles, and you're going to have those waves of enemies that if you're someone that enjoys doing damage and powering up towards certain moves, this is really going to be a game that shines for that, because it also does give you that sense of working up toward certain things where you're trying to play certain cards that are advantageous for you now, but also working toward your combo powers, because those are going to be very helpful for you. And they also get you a Fury point, which is going to help you unlock your Fury ability as well. So all of that is going to help you feel more and more strong throughout the game as you progress through the different tiles. So you are constantly trying to chase out these different hordes of enemies along with your different allies that are able to help support you along the way, but you're also going to be interacting with this narrative as well. You're going to have the adventure where it has this story that you're going through, and then you're also going to have the different environment events that are affecting you that are happening to all of the different players. So depending on which adventure you're playing with and what setup you have, it's really going to change the different things that you're going to try to maneuver throughout the game, because depending on the terrain, it could be more difficult for you to move through. You might take a slower approach, or depending on how urgent some things might be, you might try to rush through certain areas as well. Now, there's a whole bunch of things that you're able to outfit your different heroes with, such as the mounts that you're able to gain, and not only do they add something cool for you, but they look cool on the board too. You're able to ride on top of it, and it just makes you feel that much stronger, especially when you are mowing down these lower level enemies. So there is a campaign mode to this that you are able to play through, which I cannot speak to that aspect, but I do think that that's a way for you to extend this game and really get into your different characters and be able to understand the different strategies, again, depending on how these boards are made up, the different terrain that you're trying to interact with, and the enemies that are coming out and their abilities as well. So all of that is really going to shape how you're playing through the different games. And other things that players are going to be able to do throughout the game is going to be gaining things such as these loot cards. So you have different loots that are going to be able to be useful for you either within combat or to roll the Fury die, things like that. There's going to be all these different loot items that you're able to find throughout the board as you interact with it. And there are also these Sylphae that are going to show up. So you do have to entice them to become your companion, but once you're able to do so, they'll be placed on your player board and provide a bonus for you. So those are pretty good as well, and that's going to be just another way that you're able to customize your different heroes as you're playing throughout the game, adapting to what the board is giving you, and trying to take out as many enemies as possible along the way, because this onslaught is honestly not going to stop, so you have to focus on your quest cards and your adventure to be able to make it out alive. You can check out the pre-order link down below for GameFound. This has been a preview of Anastyr Chronicles by Don't Panic Games. I've been Professor Meg. Thank you all for watching the Board Game Code channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!